6:02.
Okay, it's 6:02 on April 9th, 2024. Welcome to the select board meeting. I'm gonna remind everybody that this is being recorded. And is there any public comment now, first off? I don't see any, so I'll turn it over to you.
All right, and if folks could mute themselves on their end, just as a heads up, because we're about to hop into a presentation. There was no public comment at the start. Were there any items to be added to the agenda by the board?
I have none.
None?
Not that I remember.
And
I reserve the right
No, I'm good.
later.
all right, and we have a scheduled appointment starting at 6 o'clock with Joe Lloyd, who's the Vice President of Sparhawk Engineering. Will be presenting the level 2 energy audit, and he will be sharing his screen.
Right.
So I will turn this on over to Joe.
Thank you very much. So I've been asked to come in, I guess a little bit of background. I do see a lot of familiar faces on the Zoom, so some of you know the story, but we will go through it anyway. So we were asked by the town to perform what's called a level 2 energy audit. There's an organization called ASHRAE, which governs mechanical engineering and HVAC engineering. They have different levels of energy audits, and there's a 1, a 2, and a 3. 3 being the most exhaustive. It's called an investment grade energy audit, where you do energy modeling and all sorts of crazy things. We usually try to talk people out of those because the level 2 is almost as accurate for a lot less effort, and that's what we've done here. So these what we've done is we've gone through the town building. We've made recommendations about energy conservation or energy efficiency measures to implement. You'll notice there aren't any water measures recommended. That's because you're on everybody's on a well and a septic, so there's nothing there. So let me take you through the format of this report. So I assume that this will be shared. I'm not going to read it to you because it's 93 pages and we don't actually have enough time for that. Format is this. We go through at the very beginning of the report. When you're looking at it, you'll find summary tables of all the measures we recommended. Town office and Georgetown Community Schools first, then the community center, and then the fire station and annex. I'll come back to these in a minute, kind of at the end. The reason we put those tables first is because that's what everybody wants to see, right? I mean, nobody really cares about how much stuff we looked at, but that's what they want to see are the recommendations. We also include some information on efficiency programs. There's even more money that's coming out soon. I've heard lots of rumors about this IRA funding and all sorts of things that they're doing with that. We did do a site visit on October 28th, and we've got some weather here. I just want to show you, we're looking at these facilities, and they're kind of in the same order all the way through the report. We weather normalized the data, which means that, if we're just looking at 1 year or 2 years of weather data to get the bills, that means that if we had a cold winter or a really warm winter, that would throw off our savings calculations because we'd be basing it on a warm winter or cold winter. So what we're looking at here is the average from 1994 to 2019 at the Wiscasset Airport. That's the closest that we could find here, and I think that's quite close. So I won't go through these in huge detail because I do want to talk about the measures, but we look at existing conditions for each building.
Could you zoom in just a little bit? We had a comment saying It's hard to see. Thank you.
Unfortunately, with the landscape format and the report is portrait, I'll zoom in there. So we've looked at all of these existing conditions, including heating, cooling, and hot water. We look at electricity. I'm going to go through these kind of quickly, and I'm not going to spend time on the detail, but any questions, of course, are welcome. We look at electricity usage. We looked at the boiler rooms. We looked at water usage. We made lists of equipment for each area. Some things we couldn't read, but we did make an attempt. Looking at building envelope and ventilation. So a big one, if you're doing an energy efficiency project, is your building envelope, meaning your insulation, your air sealing, your water sealing. Those are really important. Electrical appliances already mentioned. We got an equipment list there. Lighting I talked about a little bit that we did it. We made a lighting count for each building. And those are included in the report. And of course, we did look at water and sewer. We ended up not making recommendations, but we looked at it anyway, because that's required for the standards. So all of these existing addition sections are the same. They have that we look at the same things in each building. So with that, I'm going to go back up to the top. Well, actually, one more thing I want to share with you before we get into it. So this is, I've gone all the way down here. We created a utility use breakdown for each building. So you can see how much percentage goes to electricity or fuel oil, BTUs per square foot. These things are all interesting to know. One thing that I will note, we do usage profiles. This is what we would expect to see. These are normal usage profiles. If you're looking at fuel oil, for example, which I've pulled up here, you'll note that it's really jagged line. And that's because some months there are bigger deliveries than others. Some months there aren't any deliveries at all with fuel oil. And so you never get a really pretty graph with that. That's okay, that's normal. We still got the data that we needed. But what's worth mentioning, and the reason I want to scroll down here, is looking at, when we look at these buildings and we look at their energy usage per square foot, or we look at how much the town is spending in energy, it's not very high. With the exception of the town office and school, and even that, it's not high, it's not bad, it's more normal, right? But where we have the fire station is generally not that occupied, there's usually one person there, or for the community center is mostly unoccupied, the utility bills are very, very low. So when we go to the measures, which I'm about to do, you'll notice that many of them have long paybacks because it costs a lot of money to do the project and they're not using that much energy as a baseline. So it takes a long time to pay back. So let me pull this up. I think I can get this. This should be, yeah, there we go. Everybody can see that. So we recommended, you can see, I mean, some of these pay back at 140 years. I don't think we'd probably do that one. In the commercial world, it's different for a town because towns tend to want to maintain and operate their buildings forever. And they have a really long view, which is awesome. But in the commercial world, energy efficiency, people usually tell me anything under 7 years, they will do it. Anything between 7 and 10, they'll think about it. Anything over 10 is just like not a good deal for them. This is because these people flip buildings and all these things, which you're not going to do. But just for some context. So we do recommend some lighting measures. So for motion control, exterior lighting, heat pump conversion here in the town office, a boiler replacement measure. The boilers that you have here in this building are relatively new and they're very well controlled. So one of the common things that we found as we were going through this audit and looking at all the buildings is that the town is operating things in such a way to minimize the energy use already, which is awesome for you. It's not great if you're an energy auditor and you're trying to find slam dunk things to do. So the boilers, we were very pleased with how they're controlled. We recommended an indoor temperature reset. What that means is looking at the indoor temperature of the building, and if it's exceeding a certain amount or if it's exceeding set point, just turning down the boiler heating loop temperature. And that's all automatic. Air sealing of doors, attic, and then a whole bunch of lighting in the gym, classrooms, hallways, and mechanic rooms. Just give me a second to scroll here.
Are the paybacks in years?
They are in years.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not clear. Thank you. I'm going to add that to the future reports because no one's ever asked me that before. It's a good question. So community center, again, we didn't recommend a ton here because the usage is so low. The lighting will pay back. So there's some lighting control measures, which would be occupancy sensors, replacing the lighting in the stairwells and the exterior, and then installing window film. We would calculate out the savings on that. That's something that could be done. We did with the community center. So there's two other sections in the report I haven't talked about, and now's a good time to talk about them because we're talking about the community center. One section of the report is measures that we evaluated, but we didn't recommend. So for every building, there's a whole bunch of things that we either thought about while we were here or looked at or started, doing the math, didn't pencil out. And so we've included those to say, hey, here's stuff that we looked at, but we didn't recommend, because probably you may have some questions about that and we can talk about that. And in the community center, we recommended some additional measures, not based on energy, but based on the fact that that's being used as a shelter, or I'm probably using the wrong word, but as an
Warming
emergency,
space.
yes, a warming space, emergency location. So that's also in the report towards the end. I can get down there in a second. For the fire station and annex, you'll see it's relatively similar. We did add in a refrigerator replacement. There's a furnace, there's one furnace there on one controller. We can do better by replacing that. We also looked at air source heat pumps, and then lighting replacement in the apparatus bays, and exterior, and then we found some incandescent lighting, which it's been many years since I've seen one plugged in, but we found it, which was pretty cool. It was in a closet. I mean, it's not like on all the time, it wasn't, you're not wasting energy, but I just found it interesting because I haven't seen one in a while. All right, so I'm gonna scroll down to what we looked at and didn't recommend. These are all so I'll just stop here. These are descriptions of all the measures. So it talks about, like, this one is for the lighting replacement in the gymnasium, and it tells you, here's the baseline and here's the upgrade. So if you wanted to go out and get a bid to do this, you tell your contractor, we need DLC and Energy Star listed lighting, and that will meet the efficiency requirements and the assumptions that we've made in calculating the savings. And that's for every measure. All right, here we go. Evaluated but not recommended. We looked at many things. So you'll see commonly rigid foam exterior insulation. I was just telling Tyler I'm involved with a project where we're doing that right now on a large school. Air source heat pump variable refrigerant flow. So that is a large heat pump system that has fewer outdoor units than indoor units, and it will actually allow like different spaces to heat and cool each other. It's pretty awesome. And especially like in a long narrow space like the school where you have sun on one side and no sun on the other. Some space will be calling for cooling, some space will be calling for heating, and we can just move heat around instead of generating it. That didn't pencil out. Those are very expensive. It sounds super cool. They're very expensive. We looked at spray foam, water conservation. We didn't recommend. We already talked about that. Blower door targeted to air sealing. That would be using a blower door, which is a device that draws air out of the building, and you can get a number for how leaky you are. And if you go say, hey, we want to reduce that number by 20%, they can seal around using spray foam and things until they get that 20%. We didn't recommend that, just again, based on the usage being low. Package terminal heat pumps and ventilation, electric motor efficiency, the library HVAC upgrades to preserve the mural. We heard from the town that the mural is very important in the library. That's not an energy thing, but it's still, we wanted to mention that with something we talked about, something we thought about. That's hot water replacement. And then you'll talk, this is the next building. They're very similar things. So we have a list of about 60 to 80, depending on the heating and cooling source of the building, measures that we look at. And so these are some that we looked at and didn't recommend. Very similar. Sorry, the scrolling is so slow. Fire station and annex, and again, pretty much the same deal. One thing a little different there, we did look at a heat pump water heater where that building is kept relatively cool. We didn't think that made sense. And there we go. This is if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, all the calculations that we've done are in here. Now, it doesn't show you the formulas that we use, but it shows the values, the run hours of the lighting, the savings. If you're curious about how we calculated something, it's all in here. I'm not going to share the formulas with you because this is our proprietary spreadsheet, but we do want to share the inputs and the outputs so that people, know that we're just, this is how we calculate it. It's all out there. And I think, let me scroll up to the ECM page, but that's all I really wanted to cover. And then I wanted to open up to questions because I know we don't have a ton of time.
Oh, yeah, I've got
a million questions.
Well, I just, no, what you've laid out, just looking at the stuff that you've recommended and stuff seems to make perfectly good sense. I mean, 136 years, I'm not gonna have to worry about it, so. On, you know, on the payback, so.
Yeah, that's a pretty long one.
Yeah, there's a couple no brainers. That halide light that's in the parking lot that's out here.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us have been looking at that for years before an energy audit, and it's like, why is that still there?
Good question. And you certainly didn't need, some of these things, I think everybody that uses these buildings knows already, right? And you don't need us to tell you, but it is nice to have a report, because if you need to go get funding from Efficiency Maine, or if you need to go do something else, you can say, hey, look, here's this, here's what the savings is gonna be, can we get some funding? So yeah, some value there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of low hanging fruit with the air sealing, the exterior doors. Well, it's a no brainer. And
It is.
that you want to keep the secretary of the school happy, so you want to seal any cold air from coming in right next to her office. I mean, little things. I mean, it's 11-year payback, but it seems if you can make little changes, that it's well worth it.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Was there any, looking at solar or other renewable type energies? I know that was a comment that popped through.
Yes, thank you for asking. I forgot, I glossed over that. So we did recommend solar in this building. We're sitting in the town office and the school. There's great southern exposure here. Also at the fire station annex. We didn't specifically calculate the savings, because a large part of the value of a solar system is the tax credits, which people who don't pay taxes, like towns and schools, can't receive. So what you would do, or what I would recommend, would be to go out to someone who will own the system for you, place it on your building, and then you buy the power from them through a power purchase agreement. They'll sell it to you at, I mean, I don't even want to put a number on it, because I don't know what it'll be, but they'll sell it to you at some number less than what you're currently buying from CMP. And they might give you a 20 or a 30 or a 40-year deal. That allows that private company to get the tax credits, so they're happy. And that, you know, that comes off of what you'd be paying in electricity. But all of that sort of thing is gonna be unique to each company that you do. So we didn't do that calculation, other than to say, look at the siting and say, the school will be great, the fire station will be great, community center, it's got some trees right there, so not so much. And yes, Nancy, thank you. Nancy sent us some great info, and she's got a comment here. This is what we presented the town when the original energy project was done, right? And you know, those things are typically low or no cost. First costs, right? Of course, you have to pay for the electricity. But if you're working with, you know, a partner who can develop it for you, it's something that can be done with low or no first cost. And then you just get a bill and you pay them every month, like you're doing now, to CMP. So it's pretty cool. Thank you for asking.
Hey, we live to help.
Yes. I'm trying to get to
And I do see,
the comment bar. Yeah, can you pull that up?
can we close down the report?
Oh yeah,
maybe?
let me close that.
And then I see Bronwyn had a question, I believe.
It's not so much a question as a comment, that I think it's very helpful that you identified areas that are not being used much, because some of the recommendations for improvement would obviously pay out sooner if usage was increased, of the community center, for instance.
Yes.
And I think at one time, some of these buildings were much more in use. Usage has significantly changed since the pandemic and has not returned to prior pandemic levels. So it's interesting to look at improvements in energy that might be made as part of a concerted effort, either to repurpose certain buildings or to increase their usage. That's my comment.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment. It stands on its own, right? But you're absolutely right. If usage increases, the savings, and of course you'll end up spending more in the end, right? If you're spending $100 on energy and you spend 200, you'll save the same percentage, so you'll save more, but it's still a little more out of pocket to run the building, right?
And that's specifically one of the reasons when we were looking at the energy audit, we talked about doing an overview with the church. But
Right,
because the church had so little energy, any of the measures that we put in actually would have been a net increase, which is why the
Right.
church was left off.
yes, and that could be a subject of, that to me is more of as an architectural study to be done. But that could be done, at another time.
Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Joe, thank you for the Spark Notes edition, and just for the rest of the board, you did get an emailed copy of the 93 packet. The Conservation Commission has it as well, and if any residents reach out to you, I'm happy to get it over to them in a digital fashion to save a tree.
Also, I just would like to mention, all of the collection of utility and fuel bills was done by the town. We also had assistance from the Conservation Commission, and it made our work a lot easier, so really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks for the.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
And with that, we are back to our agenda, and we will let Joe pack up and get to head home while it's still
Take care.
daylight. We have an executive session at 6:30, so we'll jump through as many items as we can until we get there. The minutes of the March 26th meeting were in your packet for review and approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, vote.
Aye.
For it.
0. And under review, we don't.
you.
Thank you, Joe. We'd had put down a TBD. We were hoping to get some financials on this, but the mail did not get here as quick, so we can move on past that. Under assessing items, I just want to note that the working waterfront land classification is still with Mr. Van Tynen. In particular, now we're working on defining the specifics of where the home site lines are in relation to the shoreland zone, and that'll determine the final allotment on the acreage. But it was received prior to April 1st, and Mr. Van Tynen is confident that this will ultimately be ready for your approval. And under correspondence, I had a handful of items that I included. There was an email from the state office representative for Senator Collins regarding congressionally dedicated spending. Post packet, I also received a similar email from Senator King's office. There are a series of about 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks left now to get in an application for CDS spending. Should we decide to go there? Oh, yes, you got the bilingual option, which comes next. I included in your packet as well some of the Start Your Recovery Process flyers that came from FEMA. There's more information that continues to come out, and they've been posted about the towns. I would also note that in your packet, you had the Sheriff Department's incident report for March. There were 23 incidents in town, and that was a lower number, I believe, than the previous month. The Maine Municipal Association had legislative bulletin number 13. I really encourage you guys to continue to stay abreast of what's happening up in Augusta. And a addition that was added to the agenda Monday, I just wanted you to also be able to peruse the Mid-Coast Council Government's newsletter. We had no other correspondence, and under the continuing items, there were no new ones for this agenda, though I will believe we'll have at least one of the renewal discharge licenses on the 23rd. And with that, we have 5 minutes left. I just want to note that we had the March meeting of the Recreation Committee's minutes we received and were acknowledged. We had no one to appoint to committees to my knowledge. And with that, I turn this over to the board for liaison updates.
I don't have anything for committee liaisons or other board information.
Thank you, Bronwyn.
I think we're gonna talk about TOPMB in a bit. So I'll hold fire. I don't have
Okay.
anything.
The only thing I had was the rec committee met. And there's still, the swimming lessons still seem to be a debacle. The Y has a program for a certain age group and it doesn't count most of our kids. So that's been a mess. They're getting their June Jam, the thing for the kids at the school. It's gonna be the 12th, I guess at 2 p.m. is what they're looking at. Still working on the fall frolic. Sounds like it's gonna be September 14th or 21st, depending on the weather. 14th is the regular date, 21st is the rain date. And
Get to know your neighbor.
Get to know your neighbor. Why this isn't on here, because we must have been talking about it. It's got flyers everywhere and I can't remember the dates.
April 28th.
April 28th, sorry, up at the Osprey. And that's noon to 2 or 2 to noon to 2?
You're buying the first round of shots.
Yeah.
Good, thanks, Joe.
Well, I'll be there.
I think that's all I've got.
All right, and we've got 12 to 2. Thank you for the confirmation, Aria. I provided a written town administrator update to the board, and I just want to touch on it briefly. I just want to state that the Saginaw County EMA, the new person in there, the director, Phil Davis, has done a phenomenal job working with Chris, particularly in this last storm, and has kept us abreast of communication in a way that, since I've been here, it's a very big improvement. I'll also point out that during the storm, there were some sincere concerns about AT&T's towers being down and the communications and how that affected EMS. Chris was able to get on the horn to Phil Davis, and rest assured, EMS was able to communicate a lot better. At least that's what I'd heard. I also want to note that down near Joe Bill Pond, potholes have been getting worse. And I have been working with Representative Hepler. We reported these to the Maine DOT and we're hoping for a prompt fix. I wanted to note to the board as well that the last of the hats Chris wears that we will need to fill prior to his departure in June is as the EMA director here in town. And I just want us thinking as we are approaching the kind of folks that may want to step into that role. Some years, the EMA director, as you guys know, it's very little. And in other years like this one, Chris, I think, has put in almost as many hours on FEMA reporting as code enforcement stuff at times. So an important thing to keep an eye on. I wanted to let you know that the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association is working on finalizing getting us the dumpsters. I don't have a hard first date for you. At this point, it's either the 25th or the 26th of April through April 30. This would be for storm debris, lobster traps, flotsam, etc. We have been asked by the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association and Casella to avoid the placement of soil. Apparently another town put copious amounts of soil and Casella had big problems removing the dumpster. So, and then one last
Can't
thing.
fix stupid.
No. And one last thing, the ad for the old squad truck was posted not yesterday. I want to correct my report. It was posted this morning. And I do have a copy of the ad here just to make sure everybody has the dates. We are going to be accepting bids until May 1st. Anytime from now until then, on May 2nd, I will be opening the bids and the select board will choose the winning bid at their meeting on May 7th. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. And I also wanted to, last thing, and then we'll hop into executive session. I wanted to thank Rich for stepping up and writing the dedication for
May 14th.
May 14th.
First select board meeting of May is the 14th.
That is correct. We're going to update that and get it fixed. Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
But I wanted to thank Rich as well for stepping up to write the dedication for our Spirit of America winners. That'll be recognized on April 24th at the county courthouse.
Aye.
And with that, I believe we have an executive session scheduled for 6. So to the public, or 6:30, what I would recommend is we're going to need everybody that's on the Zoom to leave. And if you want to rejoin with the link that you were provided this morning, at 7 o'clock, you can hang out in the waiting room. And what I would say is that our executive session is likely to go until 7:15 or so. But anytime after 7, hop on in and we'd like to get the meeting back up and running once we're completed. So the link that was sent earlier will work and I hope to see you all very soon.
If I may, hold on a minute.
Yeah, oh, yes.
When we come out, we're gonna have the finance director update.
Mhm.
Is that gonna be pertinent to what we discuss in the
No.
next? Not at all.
Yeah.
Then we have you already gave the update.
Yes.
We have the fire chief update. Then we have old business. Is there any way to finish the meeting except for executive session?
What, shifting executive session down?
Till the end. We're almost done with the agenda. Is there anything that we have to? I mean, I don't care one way or the other, but instead of folks logging back on in half an hour and waiting in the waiting room. If we finish the meeting, we'll go into executive session and adjourn.
I think the original idea was that we would come out of executive session, which is all about salaries, and perhaps vote on some recommendations.
I don't
And that
think-
the
okay.
public might want to see that. However, I'm in complete agreement with what you're suggesting. And I would further suggest that we plan not to vote on specific budget numbers at this meeting, but hopefully achieve consensus, which could be voted on at a special meeting of the select board, specifically for the purpose of determining salary components of the budget on perhaps next Tuesday, sometime next week, in between now and the next scheduled select board meeting.
That might have been the other reason, so we don't have to have a special town
Right,
meeting.
well, no, but the thing is, salaries are part of the FAC budget presentation. We don't have to vote on them separately. We can.
We are responsible for setting them.
And
Does the
Bronwyn, work with me. If
Yeah,
we
okay.
take notes of the salaries that we agreed to this evening, we can plug them in. We're not agreeing or deciding. And they can be put into the regular FAC budget document and presented. Salaries aren't private, they're not private. So with the salary line for everyone in the town can come out on the FAC document. Those numbers, we can say to Mary or Tyler at the conclusion of executive session, Mary, please plug in the numbers that we discussed this evening. We don't decide on a budget until after the FAC budget hearing
Well, it's not a hearing at the next time.
or a budget discussion.
We have a budget discussion with the FAC on the 23rd, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we should be able to
That's-
plug the numbers in for
Why
that
don't we,
meeting.
why don't we just see if that works?
See if what works, Bronwyn.
If your scenario works out. And if we should have trouble agreeing, for instance, we could still schedule an extra meeting simply of the select board on a specific topic. So it's fine with me to move that whole discussion to the end of this meeting. That's the bottom line. Move the executive
Okay. No,
session to the
I
end.
was just under the impression that when you did it.
Would,
So-
would it be amenable? I know that I'm gonna need at least 2 minutes. I've gotta go let Stephen know that we'll be jumping back into the main agenda. I'd spoken with him earlier about the executive session. I believe the fire department is Brian, and I'd also tried to let him know just to game plan it out. So just give me
I was gonna say, no, don't get Bob, because isn't Bob back on?
he could be.
I can get Bob married.
Okay, so we'll stand in recess for a minute. If somebody could let Kathy Gravino, who was watching and hopped off, that we're jumping back in, we'll have this meeting proceed. And thank you, guys.
Is the FEMA person going to speak?
I think he wanted to observe our select board and the workings of town government, but he may want to speak now as I'm hopping to call Steve. And Steve did.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark McCalvin. I'm the FEMA point of contact for elected officials. And I just wanted to, I oftentimes will join meetings of elected officials to see if there's any questions or any issues that they have. And really tonight was just letting you know that that you do have a point of contact. I've been in touch with Tyler and I'm available to you all as needs be.
Well, thank you. It's a little bit mussed up right here now, but we're figuring it out, but I don't think there's any questions right now as such, but thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
We certainly appreciate your presence and your involvement.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And thank you for your patience, folks. We're just getting Stephen Mace on because he's going to be one of the items that's coming up. We had initially planned to have the executive session at 6:30. So he had been told that he likely wouldn't need to hop on till about 7 or 7:15. So once we get everyone back at the table, we'll be kicking back off and he's on his way.
Ramona's coming back?
Stephen Mace. Zoom.
Oh, good, good review.
Thank you.
Is there conversation going on?
We are having a conversation about the select board meeting number between now and election day.
The number?
3 select board
Ah.
meetings before election day.
I see. Do we have a meeting on election day? We have in the past.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope not.
But now that Mary is back, once she gets a chance to see, the next item on the agenda was Mary's update. And then we're into the chief's update. And I imagine Stephen will be on by the time we get to new business. So if everyone on the board's amenable, we can kick things back off. And thank you for your patience as we made a few phone calls.
Okay, so my update's pretty much a brief
Are
update.
we still recording? You never shut it off?
Oh, we've been recording. We're good.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if you shut it off. Nope, just checking, that's all.
I'm gonna pause it when we get to executive session.
Yep.
Okay,
Sorry, Mary.
that's all right. Mine is just a brief report. As everyone knows, we're still working on budget. The school committee passed their budget this afternoon. So I'll be inputting that or updating that. There were a few changes to that, not very many. Changes to what we already have in place. I'm still trying to get, I've been reaching out again to our auditor. Our audit's been moved up to the management chain for the next step. I just am struggling to get the audit numbers. And then I've got had in a couple requests for the audit quote for next year, and I'm struggling to get that. So I sent them another email again today about that. So status quo, I guess we're, moving forward, so. But I don't have much else, I don't think. So,
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
And with that, if Chief Whalen is ready, we'll have the fire chief's update.
Yeah, thanks guys. Yeah, so from the fire department, just wanted to give you guys a bit of an update on what was been going on kind of so far and a little recently. As of right now this year, we're at 60 calls for the year, and that's a little bit ahead of where we were the last couple of years at this time of the year. I think that's mostly due to the severe weather we've had, with the January storms, this last storm here, that those really bump up our call volume numbers for that period of time, just because we end up with lots of trees and wires and things down. So I'm pretty sure that's what is going on with that. But, we've been out there handling every one that we get, as we get it. So yeah, like I said, that's probably why we're a little ahead of where we had been last couple of years. And as we all were here for, we had the two storms, the January storm, the multi-day one, and this last snowstorm where we had up a lot of trees and wires down, which I think from our side of things, this April storm was a bit more difficult, mostly because it affected everywhere around town. It wasn't just the shorefront areas. So we ended up doing a lot more running around. But just a couple points on the wires and trees down. Came to my attention that there were several spots around town that folks had somebody before we got there had cut up a bunch of trees and whatnot. And I just want to let everybody know, if you guys could pass this all along, it's super unsafe for everyone to be cutting up trees, especially when there's wires involved. We have no way of telling if those wires are energized or not, whether that's power lines or phone or cable lines, telephone lines, that kind of, those can also be energized, especially when there's partial power in town, that kind of thing. So please call us if there's any wires involvement or anything really. We'll come down, we'll evaluate it, and we're a great conduit to let CMP know about these kinds of issues, so that things can get reported to the proper chain, so they can get prioritized correctly and fixed in the most timely manner. So please let us know. There was a bunch of stuff in town that we didn't know about until late, until I did a survey of town myself. I was able to pass that along to the CMP supervisor directly, and he was super appreciative because now he can add it to his list and get everybody turned on in the right order. So so that was the April storm. And speaking of running around town, our new squad truck has been great for that. We've been putting it to good use. It was the number one response vehicle we had out and about throughout this last storm. Carries a couple chainsaws, carries up to 5 people. So that was the number one vehicle, and it's much safer to be driving a 4-wheel drive pickup truck on snowy and icy roads rather than a 30,000-pound fire engine. So it's been a great addition to us, and we're definitely putting it to use. And I'm very, very thankful that we have it to use for that purpose. Some of the other equipment we've got going on, we've had some minor repairs to some of the other vehicles, and some upcoming small repairs, but nothing serious, nothing of major note. Some of the other equipment that I was going through recently, we've got a bunch of SCBA air packs, the packs we use for breathing air. We have a bunch of those out of service right now due to multiple small failures on them, but got to schedule those in to get repaired. These are old packs. They're kind of worn. The ones we have now, we've inherited from the Brunswick Fire Department. They were upgrading their packs, and so we were able to acquire some of their older ones they were getting rid of. So we've kind of always been the recipient of the free ones because that's where we are on the totem pole. But I'm hoping to, in the next year or two, start to acquire some new ones, whether that's through grant funding or otherwise. But they're quite expensive for new ones, and but it's something we definitely need, especially now we've got 7 folks that are currently right now qualified to wear an air pack. So go into a building full of smoke and breathe that air. 7 out of 28 or so folks in the department. As of right now, we have 2 more in a class, basic fire class right now, that will get them that certification. So we'll have 9 people in the department at that point who are cleared and have the training and skills to use those. So it'd be nice to have the ones all that we have be completely functional. Excuse me. So as far as personnel goes, we've had kind of a rough start to the year. We've since the beginning of the year, we've lost 4 people on the department due to various reasons. Some moving away, some doing family or obligations, other reasons. And with those people, they took a lot of institutional knowledge with them, and we really want to thank them for their service. But it's going to take probably more than 4 people to replace them and to do all the things that they did. A bunch of them had taken on a lot of extra duties, and so I've been really working to try to fill those vacancies with whoever's willing. We've had a bunch of members step up and kind of take on little bits and pieces of the jobs and responsibilities and the extra duties that these people have been taking care of, and I really appreciate that. But we're running out of people with the available time to get those things done, and so a lot of these tasks are things that are mandated. They're either state mandated or nationally not required, but suggested NFPA recommendations, that kind of thing. So we're working to try to get these filled, but really not doing well with getting them filled up with current members. So I'm starting to explore the possibility of looking outside the department for the extra help, whether that's from someone outside of town or maybe a new member who wants to come in and get trained up. But that takes time, and I've got these tasks that are not getting done right now. We're not getting done in a timely manner because we don't have the folks right now. So we're looking into looking at possibly hiring in from outside, like I said, maybe per diems, someone who's already got EMT training or firefighter training, or really both to be perfect, and have them help us with these tasks and these jobs and whatnot. So that's kind of what we're doing for personnel. But yeah, like I said, the getting enough people with enough available free time is really been the hardest part recently, and it's been an ongoing all the time kind of issue in this department, and I foresee it being continuing to be an ongoing issue, but something that we're working towards. It's hard for me to ask the folks that we've got already to take more of their time that they've already given up quite a bit with regular meetings and trainings and responding to calls at all hours of the day. So asking them to take on even more duties and more jobs is asking a lot of some folks, and they're already giving us the time that they've got. So that's what we've got going on. And if anyone's got any questions, I'll answer any questions if they got any.
I don't think I have any questions. I was chasing you guys around with the snowplow most of the time, last whatever day that was, when it snowed. So saw you out.
Well, keep calling us. Let us know about the trees now. We'll come out and take care of what we can.
SAG.
What we can't, we'll let CMP know.
Yep, SAG's the first one I call when I see him. So
Yep.
they get it. Anything else?
Well, thank you for putting trees and road closures on the Facebook page. I think that's very helpful to people in the community. Brian, my understanding is that part of the requested increase in the fire department budget for next year is to cover some of these tasks that you referred to, specifically a whole array of things that Chris Wilcoxon has been doing as part of his service to the fire department. Is that correct? And could you amplify a little bit your concept of the administrative position that you'd like to see in the fire department?
Yeah, sure, Raman. So part of my budget request for next year is to, increase the budget line that we have right now for these. It's the budget line is titled EMS Fire Admin, which is a bit, it's accurate, but it's might be the admin part might be a little misleading. That's a little part of it, but it's not even most of it of what I would look to see for someone in that position. So looking to possibly increase that budget line so that I have the ability to, possibly advertise a wage rate that is attractive for someone to come from out of town, to come down to Georgetown to be here and work for us as like in a per diem capacity. The budget line that I've put in for is a close to market rate for this area for that type of position. And the position, what I'm looking for someone to be, ideally in a perfect world, they would be certified as an EMT, emergency medical technician, and as a firefighter. someone that can, put on a breathing apparatus, breathing equipment, full turnout gear and go in and fight fire. That's the ideal position. Someone that can do both. If we could get one or the other to start with and train them up on the rest, then yeah, that'd be worthwhile. And this person would be primarily, so to be at the station, ideally, they would be, there responding to calls as needed when they came in. They would add to our responder list and have someone ready to go right when the call came in. But also in the meantime, which our call volume is not that high daily on average. So they would be doing the kind of checks and maintenance and things like that tends to get not forgotten, but pushed down the list of things on a regular daily priority list. So fire equipment checks, checking all the trucks. They all have to be checked weekly. All of our air packs need to be checked weekly. Also to check the ambulances, do a weekly inventory, monthly inventory as needed. Also take our, update our drug logs every week, that kind of thing. And anything else that, might need to be done on a regular basis. So, and I definitely have projects that could fill up the other, time it would take them on a daily basis to be there. So, station cleaning, maintenance, things like that. Any kind of small special projects around the station that, we might need done. So that's kind of what I was looking for. And again, this is the amount of time it's going to take to get all of this stuff done on a weekly or monthly basis. The current membership we have right now doesn't have that kind of time available. And I've made it very, very well known within the department that we're looking for individuals to do these things. And like I said, some people have taken off little bites here and there because that's what they have time for. And we don't have enough people take enough little bites to get all this done right now. And so that's been the struggle, which is why I've made the decision to start looking outside. But as of right now, I don't have the ability to, well, I'll take that back. What we could offer right now to someone coming in is not what would attract someone to come all the way down to Georgetown, even from Bath or somewhere local, to get this work done. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at. But that's kind of what I was envisioning for that role. Even though it says admin on it, it's really more of a everyday get things done that need to be done on a regular basis, for checks, so that if there's a maintenance issue later on with a piece of equipment, I can say, look, we checked this just last week, so this just came up, or we can find those maintenance issues, before it's a big deal, when it's still a small problem, kind of thing. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Ryan, how many hours a week are you talking, and what's this rate that is the magical rate that we have to pay someone from Bath to come down? You kept beating around the bush. How many hours a week and how many dollars an hour? How many hours per day?
Well, if I was going to have someone come down for the day, I'd want to make it worth their time to, get suited up and come down and do the work. So I was thinking at least 8 hours a day. It depends on if they were already trained up or not and what they were capable of doing. But yeah, it'd be a full day. It'd be 8 to 10 hours, maybe 12 if they wanted to really do that. And, have them be here for at least one day, maybe two, if they want to do 2 8s. We had budgeted for this current budget year, for two days a week at 8 hours a day. I think the rate we have set for that right now is $18 and change. I don't remember the exact one, but the number that I've put into the budget for next year is $25 an hour. I think that is much closer to what somebody is making as an EMT or as a firefighter in, the Saginaw County area. If someone who is working, over in Topsom per diem and wants to pick up an extra shift 1 day a week or maybe 2 days a week down in Georgetown, this $25 an hour rate is comparable to what they're already making over there. No one's going to come to Georgetown for $18 an hour when they're making $23 an hour in Topsom. They're going to pick up another Topsom shift. And that's what we're competing against. We're competing with an ever shrinking pool of possible applicants. So that's that's what we're looking for right now.
Thanks. I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
With that, we've completed our updates, and so we'll hop on to old business. And in your packet, I included a tracking document to set the meeting times on our public hearings coming up, as well as candidates night. There have been a couple of questions that I've been asked on whether or not these will be in-person, Zoom, or hybrid meetings. So what I was hoping is we could go down through each one, make a determination, and we'll get this stuff out to the public. On May 7th, we have an ordinance hearing. Typically, historically, those hearings would be held around 7 PM, or is 6 PM the time that would normally happen? I wasn't here, so I get to ask that.
7.
Would 7 PM work?
Yeah, it gives me a little more time now. It's light. I was running around. I didn't have much time.
And in terms of the ordinance hearing, are we thinking in-person, Zoom, or hybrid? What I will say is that hybrid meetings will be difficult with some of these if we're leaving this physical space and doing them in the gymnasium where the acoustics are tough. So I just want to stress that. I also want to stress that in the event that we have a public meeting in a space and we can't do Zoom or hybrid, I'm sure we can find a way to either stream it on Facebook or on YouTube, or record it and get it uploaded. It just wouldn't be the interface of a back and forth. So I just wanted to share logistically.
What is this meeting?
When?
What is this meeting? This one?
This one's hybrid.
Then why don't we continue this for those, or not candidates night, but the budget hearings and the ordinance hearing?
Keep them hybrid in this room?
Yes.
Okay,
Second. I view that as a motion, then I second it.
We need a motion, George.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm in favor.
perfect. And so if we're doing them in here and not the gymnasium, are we thinking 7 PM for the school budget hearing and town budget hearing? I do want to stress the school budget hearing also falls on a select board meeting night. Which we're currently slated to start at 6, but we could always change that if need be for that as well.
How did they get on our day?
Yeah, aren't they Wednesdays?
Town budget hearing is the following day. So that's a 2 for a week,
We could start what is the date of that?
May 14. And if we're doing them hybrid in this room, we could always start our
I think-
meeting at,
Start our meeting at 6 and move to the school budget hearing at 7.
School budget hearing, yeah, that's fine. It shouldn't take that long.
perfect.
We should be able to finish. And
So 7 PM for all the hearings?
Yeah.
Perfect. And the last thing remaining is candidates night. I would personally recommend this be done over Zoom or hybrid, but definitely a Zoom component. The date that I initially had recommended of May 8th does not work for Nancy Kinner. So we have 5 dates that would work for Nancy in the month of May. Wednesday, May 1st, Thursday, May 2nd, Monday, May 20th, Wednesday, May 22nd, and Thursday, May 23rd. And I'm open and amenable to any of those. The one thing I'd stress is that May 1st and 2nd would be prior to absentee voting starting. The week of the 20th, absentee voting would be underway. For the town election at this point, there's only one contested race. And I don't know how many folks are beating the bushes to want to watch that early and get their vote in as soon as it opens. But I just wanted to stress that I'd hoped for the week of the 8th, but Nancy will be in Alaska and can't take me with her, unfortunately.
I'd go for the earlier
want-
dates in May, the 1st or the
Nothing?
2nd.
I've got nothing on the 1st or the 2nd.
Do you want to do the first day of May? Candidates night?
fine, sure.
Perfect. So we're going to do May 1st.
I have a planning board meeting.
Oh, planning board.
It's fine. Planning board is at 7.
Perfect. So do we want to do candidates night at 6?
On Monday?
It's Wednesday.
It's
isn't it?
Wednesday.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Wednesday, May 1st.
May
I have a
1st.
planning board meeting. You can have it without me.
Okay,
I don't ask questions.
so,
It's fine.
And are we thinking
May
6?
1st, 7 o'clock, but not in here.
okay,
You can run the meeting from in there and everyone else will be on Zoom.
If
Zoom.
it- yeah.
Perfect. So that one will be Zoom and we're thinking 6 PM.
No,
Whatever.
Well, I guess it
everything else
doesn't
is-
matter
The
in that it
only.
will be recorded, but
The only hiccup that I will stress with having the planning board run at the same time as candidates night is we can only run one meeting on our account at a time.
what happened about the second? Is there a conflict on the second?
We could do Thursday the second.
We have a meeting at GC second at 7 o'clock.
Community center meets that night.
And
The
if this is
board
gonna
of the
be-
community. Well, I don't think that's as big a conflict as having the planning board on the first. This is going to be recorded and available on YouTube. So
Yes.
anyone who can't watch it, unless there are candidates who can't be present on the second. I mean, who can't zoom in on the second.
Does the second work?
Yeah.
Okay,
Works for me.
at
I'm
7
good.
PM?
I think they should all be the same time because it's confusing when you start jumping around.
Perfect. We've got marching orders, so thank you. I will get this information out to candidates and out to the public for the time on hearings, because believe it or not, we've had many questions already about May. So I think we're good on that front. So we're now on to new, unless there was more discussion, I kind of just cut that off rather rudely. All right, new business. There was a request from the Town-Owned Property Management Board to expend reserve funds. And I believe Stephen could speak to this.
Sure, thank you, Tyler. Have you all seen the communications that we have passed through the town office?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
And just to preface, Stephen, we've broken up these into two separate agenda items. The first one is just expending the reserve funds. The second one's about a warrant article. So if we could take them up separately.
Right on, right on. As we've discussed it at previous board meetings, we have an obligation to Five Islands Lobster Company to make the property available for them so they can run their business and they can pay the town the lease amounts that they owe. And throughout this process of the past couple of months, the option that seems most available to our board are the ones that we communicated from a special meeting that we had last Thursday at the community center. Rich was present, Todd, Mark, and myself. The bulkheads at the Love Nest, we have received and accepted a quote in the amount of $32,375. We made a request of the Board of Selectmen for up to $45,000 from the Wharf Reserve Fund. We don't know what we're gonna find, right? So you always gotta aim high. We know if those monies aren't used, they're gonna go back into the reserve fund and be available for the community later on. We have also, the output of our meeting was we have to do this bulkhead first. And the only available funds that we're aware of to do this right now are Wharf Reserve funds. So that amount is $32,375. To try and spread the expenses out, the decision at our special meeting last Thursday was that get that done. And we've been calling it phase one in all of our communications to the select board as well as contractors. Phase two is the erosion that's underneath the picnic area, the deck that extends over the south side. And both of those projects fall under repair and maintenance, no permits required. So in an effort to preserve Wharf Reserve funds, we elected at our meeting last Thursday to request up to, and I can say it now, I would say $12,000 from ARPA, the remaining ARPA funds, which is a little over 20% of what is left. 30%, excuse me, to repair under the construction area, and then that be a warrant on the June town meeting. So we're spreading the repairs out, trying to spread the expenses out. So our request for up to 45. So what I'm here to put in front of the select board tonight is, if we've requested 45 and we've got 2 bids here that are just shy of that, in your opinion, should we be spending town money up to 45 and get both jobs done at one time? Or should we spread it out and use ARPA funds as a phase 2? But we have to get this 32,375 done now. And the contractor has told us that he will do that from the middle of middle of April to the end of April, so that the wharf will, at least that portion of the wharf will be ready for Five Islands Lobster Company. So I'm happy to take questions. Rich, you were present at the meeting. Feel free to chime in. But these are things we have to do. And at least in terms of, as our obligation as a lessor.
Okay, Bronwyn,
Yeah, you confused me, Stephen. You're asking for up to 45 from reserves. How much have you got in reserves?
I don't have an exact figure for you, Bronwyn,
Anything
but-
approximately.
Right, I believe we were at around 127.
Okay,
and
that's
if
the
we
number I
ask for-
remember.
If we
That's-
ask for 45, we're asking for 45 less than that.
Oh. What?
So
Anyway,
so what he's looking for is 45,000 out of the remaining approximate 127.
right,
Which would
correct.
leave about 80-ish Mount Ararat math at the moment. I just had to get
Close
that joke
enough.
in.
Close enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
And
Bronwyn, I
the-
didn't do that very well.
The estimate for phase 1, which is to make the Love Nest safe, is 32,700.
It is ranged from 60 to 32.
But you
The
have a,
bid we've accepted is the 32.
okay. And so the additional money to get up to 45 will cover the bulkhead under the picnic tables.
No,
No.
no.
that just covers anything that messes up.
Unexpected expenses.
Yeah.
Unexpected expenses. We just don't know how bad the erosion is under
Okay,
that
well,
southeast corner.
what confuses me is that you said you wanted us to decide between spending town money now or phasing it out and spending 12,000 in ARPA funds. That 12,000 is the money for the bulk, for the under the picnic tables?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a different
And-
project.
Yeah, it's a different project, but
That's phase 2, so that's a different thing than the
Yes.
first one.
Which would be
I
the second
understand
item.
that part, guys. What I don't understand is how we're choosing between. If we got 32 and we add 12,000 to that, that's 44. And you're asking for 45. You're asking for 45 plus 12?
No.
You're asking for
Well,
45
The
altogether?
answer is yes and no. We didn't know, we don't know what we're gonna find. It's like rebuilding an old house, right?
I
You never know
understand
what
that.
you're gonna find.
What I'm thinking is that if we spend ARPA money, we can't reimburse for it. If
Right.
we hope to get FEMA money for that erosion control, we can spend reserve money and be reimbursed for it.
That had never been offered to us as an option.
Well, it's
Our
not an,
understanding
I mean, we
was-
don't know
our
if it's an option, but
Our understanding is that those areas and what we're calling phase one, which is the bulkhead at the Love Nest, phase two, which is abatement underneath the picnic area, phase three, which extends from the corner of the picnic area to the dumpster, and then phase four is from the dumpster beyond. And phase one and two do not require any permits. And so we're trying to get the unpermitted work done as soon as we can. And in an effort not to pirate over 50% of what's in the reserve fund for the wharf, in the wharf reserve, if we can ask for a portion of the ARPA funds to do that $10,000 worth of work underneath the deck area, which still falls under repair and maintenance, then we're hopefully saving $10,000 in the reserve fund. You know, this is the best logic we can come up with in, you know, but if the select board, and the reason we're here is to come up with a consensus. What's the best plan for the town? If you want to give us $45,000 from the reserve fund, we can do all the work in phase one and phase two and reduce the reserve fund by another $45,000, which in ballpark figures is $135,000 just this year. Cool. We have to do that. Or we wait till town meeting and we're asking for $10,000, approximately 9885 is what the quote is. And that in effect puts $10,000 back in the reserve fund.
well,
It's
it leaves 10,000 untouched.
yes, that's the way I see it. Regardless, either way, we want to do the 45 grand out of the reserve fund for the first phase. That's a given. That was the first thing we wanted to do. Yes. And I thought.
Right.
That's what they're at.
Yes. So
But the quote is for 32.7.
Right.
Uh,
So we're going high because we don't know what's going to happen.
I don't blame them a bit for that.
Yep,
No, I mean, that makes perfectly good sense for me, just knowing what's there and what might not be there.
and if it's not spent, it's gonna stay
Yeah,
in the reserve.
exactly. If it doesn't get spent, it goes back to the reserve.
The next thing, if I may, Stephen, if the next.
Absolutely,
question
Rich. You were present.
Yep.
the next question is, from the Malden ramp to the picnic area,
Right.
is gonna cost about $12,000 to shore that up.
Yep.
So we can, TOPMB can request right now to use 12,000 additional dollars from the reserve, which will deplete the reserve even more, but the repair, shoring up that shoreline past the picnic area will be done before Five Islands Lobster Company
Mhm.
Opens.
And that's-
I should also mention, and I think you're all aware of it, but the TOPMB had at our special meeting last Thursday, we elected to close off create barriers on the picnic area so that nobody falls through. Thank you, John Collins. Good suggestion. And we extended that all the way to the dumpster area because we don't want someone coming down for the lobster, they've driven from Connecticut for to decide to walk on the rocks and break their leg. So we have closed that area. We have chosen to close that area to all people until we can come up with a better plan and repair that South Shore.
Right, now if I may continue. Or the second option, either we pay 12 grand right now
Mhm.
and we get it done before the season starts and it's done. Or $12,000-ish comes out of the ARPA funding that's remaining and the work is done at the end of the season. And that will be the $12,000
Right.
that's from the Malden ramp to the end of the picnic area. So the $12,000 won't change. It either A, comes out of the reserve, or B,
Comes from ARPA.
it's voted on for ARPA funds and then used later in the year.
And if it comes out of the reserve, though, we might be capable of getting the FEMA. So that's the,
Absolutely.
is it worth worrying about the FEMA reimbursements or just wait
Well,
until?
I think it's worth doing the work now and taking the money from the reserves and hoping that you don't find a lot of excess stuff and that it's less money than you're overall projecting. And then there will still be time to ask for yet more money for the phase that does require permits, that isn't about rebuilding. And that would be a better use of the ARPA money if we haven't spent it on something else.
I would feel
That's
more
my thinking.
comfortable. I would feel more comfortable, Bronwyn, if we knew that repairs underneath the deck could be FEMA eligible. And to the best of my knowledge, we do not know that right now.
All the erosion that's gonna require the masticator.
Because it falls under repair and maintenance, is my understanding.
Well, we had a FEMA guy present.
And he's conveniently made it out of the room by now. So in terms of just to get the discussion back on track, I think there's consensus tonight to get both fixes done from the reserve. The question is, you guys are requesting 45,000, which with the two quotes would be enough to cover it and still a little extra.
Right.
Mhm.
Does that number need to be bumped up to 50,000 to make TOP and B feel comfortable? Hopefully knowing we're gonna be able to recoup 6 of that in the end, give or take. Or do you see the question I'm at? How do we get to the finish line? Because I think there's unanimous consensus. Get the work done
Yep.
prior to the season so that Connecticut guy can walk down and see the lobster.
The only thing is if we, if you want the ARPA, we're gonna have to wait till the end of the, end of the season.
No, and this makes sense to fix it now.
Yes, no, I just
Yeah,
wanted to make sure.
I
okay
think
with
we're
that.
in agreement. Let's
TOPMB
just
money,
do it.
they can
and
come back
stop.
and request more at the
True.
next meeting.
Right, however, can I just get clarity on what the 45,000 that you're asking for is for 32 and the work, or just 32 plus a $13,000 cushion in case you have a problem?
It was the cushion.
That was in case we have a problem.
Okay, so the 45 is not going to get this job complete, is what I'm getting at. Okay,
We
you
don't
still
know,
need
Mary.
another 9,800.
We put 45 on 32,375, just not knowing.
But you have you have a
And we-
quote for 9,000 whatever
$885, right?
on the rest, on the other thing. So what I would like to
Yeah.
do is to move to approve use of the reserve funds for the wharf for phase 1 and phase 2, up to $50,000.
I'm okay with that.
I'll
That's a
second that.
motion.
Yeah.
And I'll second it, but all they have to do is come back and
Yeah.
get more.
Yes,
Until the
Exactly,
reserve is completed.
exactly.
Yeah.
All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Yeah.
Aye.
3-0. All right,
That's why we're here, people.
and this
Thank
is
you.
how the sausage is made, Stephen.
It'll
Yeah.
look great.
I can't wait to
Hey,
get,
you know,
It'll look great.
right
And-
on. You
and
know,
the
we're
Great.
and the great
doing the
news
best we
is,
can with what we got.
and the great news is the next agenda item we can take right off because we tackled it in this one. So
We could have done one without the other.
the requested ARPA. We're
Okay.
skipping that. So now our last item before we end up in the executive session is a discussion about ARPA projects and what this board would like to identify as its goals that I can go out, work on getting quotes. So we have good numbers for town meeting to expend that money. I know that I received emails from all three board members. John had suggested that there might be money to be used to help fix with the replacement of the Charles Pond culvert. I know that Rich had talked about using ARPA monies down at the Five Islands Wharf. And I know that Bronwyn had included a suggestion to upgrade our conference room and to make sure that we're complying with state law, making sure cameras are in the right place, and really make sure that the public can work together, and looked at the Hollowell model as an option. Am I missing any of those three kind of thoughts, discussions? And you guys can extrapolate on your ideas better than I can, but that's what I've received. So we're all operating from the same.
No, the culvert at Charles's Pond is rotted out in the bottom. There's a big hole in it, and you can't even fish stuff through it right now because the beaver have gotten stuff jagged down into the jagged
Yeah.
bottom of it. So it's a pain, and that's gonna have to be fixed. And that, I don't know off the top of my head how much it'll be, but I don't think it's gonna be more than, I think 25 would be, if we do it ourselves, would be a high end thing, you know, top end of it. So that still leaves a bunch for other projects.
And
I
with the
think-
updated rules from ARPA, the SLURF guidelines, road projects were recently added as something that is eligible. So that would meet the muster
Yep.
of utilizing.
And we can get
I
better
think
numbers, but-
if you can get actual costs
Right,
on those issues, that there's nothing we need to discuss tonight.
Mhm.
Perfect. So what
Also, Mary,
Yes.
if you will, John, doesn't matter. Now that we have the grant for the Robin Hood Reserve, our road commissioner reserve for roads has a tremendous, couple $100,000 in it. That we weren't
Robin Hood
expecting.
Reserve, yes.
Robin Hood Reserve, what we can reappropriate because we've gotten a grant and we've already satisfied our side of it. So we have a significant road reserve
Mhm.
because of that grant. Which we can
We-
use
we-
to the.
Well, we've already got, you know, like 3 or 4 roads that we've been trying to get them paved, and it just hasn't. They just haven't had the bodies, I think, to do it, but we've got, I know the loop, schoolhouse.
Yeah.
The majority, the rest of Robin Hood. And First Beach is peeling off in sheets, kind of like subdivision roads around here, some of the subdivision roads. So I know we've got 3 big paving projects that would probably eat up most of that. I haven't even seen what the prices of paving are gonna be this year. I'm sure it's gonna be astronomical. But I mean, and
We've
not,
got a quote for 260,000 for Robin Hood Road.
Right, and we got a grant for that.
No, that's just-
That's just the paving
The
of
paving.
Robin Hood Road
Approaching it.
outside of the culvert
Yes,
project,
Roger.
yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and one for 120,
I don't
I
remember.
think,
Yeah.
for Old Schoolhouse Road.
Yes,
Ouch.
Yeah.
no, seriously, it's that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that bad.
And First Beach was on,
Yep.
on Charlie's mind for this year's budget.
Yep.
So, for this upcoming year's budget. So, and I had accrued 90,000 last year of funds that he hadn't used. And so those are still
Yeah.
available for us to use as part of that
Mhm.
project, so, part of the old schoolhouse project,
Schoolhouse was supposed to, like I say, was supposed to have been done last year.
right,
It
last
just
summer.
didn't.
Has the road commissioner put in a budget for those 4 jobs this year?
Yes, yes,
So it'll be part of the budget discussion, we're having a couple of. weeks.
correct, yes, at least the Robin Hood part of it, yes. Not sure about if First Beach.
Well, the
So
first
I'll
beach
find
is
out.
a new one. I'll.
Yeah, I think that, we talked about it, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure that he had actually had a quote from anybody.
I don't think he
You know
has
what I
either.
mean?
Yep,
So, Charles and First Beach should be,
And old
Make sure.
schoolhouse.
Old Schoolhouse is already in there,
There you go.
because I've accrued for it the last year. The auditors let me get away with it, it's still in there. Yeah.
Nice, good. And the We have a long-range project that's gonna require over a year of permitting for the wharf. This goes from the dumpsters to, I think, the Dokes house.
Sounds like,
And we're looking at 15 or 20 feet laterally. And it's at least 15 or 20 feet deep. So there's a significant cost that's going to be incurred by the town in that area. And I know we have 2 years to spend ARPA funds once we've earmarked them. And that's gonna be a huge expense for TOPMB in the next couple, it's not getting better. And it's all
agreed.
soft soil, and the last storm even more went out to sea.
Right. But we don't have, but ARPA funds aren't enough to even touch that project, really.
No, it'll help reduce taxpayer burden.
It might get the planning and
If it's a
the permitting.
It's $500,000 job.
Right.
Then it's a $50,000 input towards that job. But it's gonna be significant.
Right.
And just our taxpayers are getting killed. Last year they got killed, and this year it's gonna be a bloodbath.
All right, I've got good marching orders to gather some more data. I will say there was a comment that came through on the screen, but I could not get it pulled up. I would encourage, I believe it was Aria. We'll have public comment next before the executive session. She could raise that comment then, because I can't find it on the screen. Too many pop-ups.
All right.
So with that, it's your agenda.
Okay, is there any public comment?
I'm seeing Aria's got a thumbs up.
Yes, Aria.
Just wondered, thank you for, we talked about this at the special town meeting, whether or not other entities could apply to be considered for to use reserves. Please, sorry about that, to use the reserve ARPA funds. And I understood from Mary's response, thank you, Mary, for clarifying that during the special town meeting, that those were unrestricted funds. So I just wondered the timeline, if you're going to allow other entities, other town committees to apply. All of these are worthy projects. The wharf, obviously the culvert, and other committee work that may need to be done. And we are just curious about that, and some of us in town have been wondering about that. So if you could address that, we sure would appreciate it. Thanks.
Whether the select board is entertaining any other,
I guess we could. I mean, I don't see what else. Yeah, we just didn't have any, those are the ones that we just came up with off the top of our heads. So I mean, if there's something else, I guess you could send it to the town office if you have something. Do we have a time? What's our time frame? We want to get it by the.
He's arranged town budget warrant.
And realistically, mid-May is when the warrant gets posted. You guys will be approving that, I believe, at the second meeting in May, the warrant to go out. But ideally, these are gonna be projects that we'd want fleshed out. You'd want quotes, you'd want an enveloped good proposal and get things in. Because as we're proceeding on we're ready for takeoff, we're getting there for the trip. So if folks are interested, definitely get stuff to the town office. I will share it with the board. Ultimately, the board decides what warrant articles are included for the town warrant that gets posted. I would say if members of the community disagreed with whatever that proposal was, they could always vote it down, and there could be a special town meeting later on. That said, if folks have good ideas, get them in now while there's still time to not have to go that route. Does that kind of make sense?
I think so.
well, we're going to want to allocate this
Right,
money.
yes.
This town,
At this
coming up
town meeting, yes, we need to do it at this
So,
town meeting, so
Do
that's
it
the,
now or don't do it.
right, because we can't do it,
Correct.
right, this.
Yep.
Thank
I
you.
mean, yes,
So-
we could have a special town meeting, but the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Is, do these projects. Yeah. Sorry.
So for entities who have asked, what's the deadline for them to make a proposal to the select board for the use of the remaining reserve funds? What would be the deadline that we would give them, please?
Don't have that in.
I mean, how many town meetings or select board meetings do we have? One,
We have two.
maybe two
meetings.
between
We
then?
have the 23rd, and then we have the 14th, and the third meeting is May 28th for approving the warrant.
warrant.
So we have probably by the 23rd of April, And it would be what is the project? How much is it gonna cost? Who's going to do it? Timeline to do it? Then we can make a decision, yes, it can happen.
It's
We,
on
the select
December,
board,
no wonder I can't see
or
what's
no,
going
it
on.
can't happen.
So. There we go.
23
So basically, we're looking at 2 weeks, I guess. If we get it before our next, or, well, I lie. It wants to be on the 18th, so it can be put on the agenda for the 23rd, correct?
Yes.
18th of this month. That way it can get, it's at the town office. And it
Week
can,
and 2 days, pretty much what you got.
yep, a week and 2 days.
And Aria, just so you're aware, and I'm sure, and if I may, John,
Please,
and I know we're not supposed to banter in public comment. I mean, folks call me almost, I don't know, 3-4 times a week. Our numbers are posted on the town website. If any neighbors have ideas, they can certainly reach out to any of the Board of Selectmen and ask and say, hey, I'm interested in this. And then we can bring it to Tyler for inclusion on the next meeting. And that happens behind the scenes continually. I mean, that's what happens. I'll reach out and say, I heard this, Tyler, and here, let's talk about it the next select board meeting. Or Mary, this question came up, blah, blah, blah. But I get calls still, at least twice, 3 times a week, every week. About things like you're asking right now, that shouldn't just be reserved for public comment on a select board meeting.
Understood. Thanks. I just needed some clarification. I appreciate it.
okay, thank you.
And I appreciate you asking, Aria, because that gives me some good clarification too.
Okay,
And I believe Stephen put his
Stephen,
hand
did you
up.
have a comment?
He needs to unmute himself.
You're muted still.
Lo siento.
There you are.
Aria raised a really good point. We just added $9,500 to our budget for next year for engineering and surveying to repair town property. So what I'm hearing is if we've got a big ticket item, we should put it in front of you before the 18th. So we can keep it out of next year's budget. Am I misunderstanding?
No, you are not understanding that correctly, Stephen. No. No, you should continue on with your budget just like you have. What Ari is asking about is the remaining ARPA funds. That, which is right now at about $50,000 because the town property management's already taken $50,000. So what we're doing is looking for other projects beside, that might be other committees might be interested in. The TOPMB should still continue to put their, budget together for next year. And the engineering should be part of that.
But don't consider these big ticket items as eligible for these ARPA funds.
They might or might not be.
Right.
There are very specific, detailed, hundreds of pages of information about ARPA funds. But the thing behind it is that it would be reimbursing towns for expenses that had to do with the pandemic. And so engineering studies for something that's very much in the future are less at the top of my thinking
Right.
Well,
than
and thank
than
you,
road
Bobby.
repairs.
That's I don't know how road repairs are pandemic related any more than what
That
I'm
has to-
I'm
That has
talking
to do
about.
with how they opened the eligible categories, but it's still pretty complicated and Tyler's been doing all the research. So if
And-
you have an idea, run it past Tyler.
And what I will also say, Stephen, send in that request, but I think you're hearing from the board that request is likely to be denied because it's going to be likely in the budget next year. So if you want it to be considered, we've now opened up to the public until the 18th, the ability to put stuff before us, but ultimately the three decision makers at this table are gonna choose projects that can meet that 54,000, that can then go to town meeting and everyone in town gets a chance to say, hey, we think this is great, or we want to vote it down and have a special town meeting. I hope we get this with a bow on it and we can get some good stuff done for the town, but
Right on.
I think we have an executive session to get into
Yeah.
if there's no more public comment.
If I can just add one thing and then I'm gone. If there can be some guidelines, about this $54,000 posted on the website, what your request is for and what the basis of the request is, that would be helpful for not only TOPMB, but every other committee. Some guidelines on the basis of the request.
And what I will say is that this came up tonight and we will work on getting good guidelines and information out. But this was not an expectation that I was prepared to even be entertaining in discussion tonight.
And I don't think the select board was expecting to solicit ideas in a broad sweep from out there. I think we were trying to deal with needs we knew we had, but
Correct.
Do you
All right.
have a cheat sheet?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, is that all that's all the public comment? We're gonna move on to executive session and pursuant to one MRSA, section 405, subsection 6, subsection A. I move we enter executive session to discuss personnel matters.
second,
All right. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Thank you.
Thank
And-
you, everybody, for showing up tonight.
And I will pause this recording now and then we can officially adjourn on mic after.
Voting for it.
Yes, voting.
Okay, we're out of executive session. Bronwyn mentioned a couple weeks ago that she wanted, after a couple of meetings, to discuss having a 6 o'clock start or a 7 o'clock start. And it's been 2 meetings. So would we like to continue with the 6 o'clock start for the next 3 meetings of the year? Or do you want to revert back to a later start?
if they're gonna be this long, we'd better start at 6.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I like 6 o'clock. And I just want, Bronwyn, you brought it up, so I want to make sure that we're still on
Thank you.
board.
Thank
And the
you.
next thing is, for our next discussion, I would make a motion that Mary enters what we discussed this evening in executive session into her document,
Salary.
in the salary document.
Makes sense?
Can I have a second?
Oh, sorry, second.
And lastly, that we will discuss before, if we start at 6, we have a discussion, we have the regular meeting minutes, pardon me, John, doing this, no, stepping on you. But we have the regular meeting minutes, we condense it as much as possible because we're having the FAC.
Yes.
So if 6:30, the FAC starts, we should be able to have discussions. We only have one
Right.
area that we're not on agreement.
Mhm.
And the proposals will come forward and we can discuss it, and when we move forward.
Mhm.
Or any of, like, I like this part of the proposal, but I don't like that, we figure that out. And then the FAC runs soup to nuts on the town budget, and then we can vote on moving it to the budget hearing.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds good.
that works for me.
Move to adjourn.
Second, thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Have a good night, Bronwyn.
Thanks.